So, after the greasy, disgusting, ugly, disturbing, soul-crushing, and yet ugly year that was 2020, today I'm going to try to do something a little bit different. For our own little superhero bubble, I am going to try and take this wretched year that was 2020 and try to put a positive spin on things. Hey guys, my name is DJ, and I want to preface this by saying I understand that 2020 was without a doubt one of the worst years for the human race since, well, the 1940s. And while I could go on and talk about the pandemic and how everyone is still reeling from the roller coaster ride of 2020, I decided that I'm going to try something different. For once in my life, I am going to try and take a horrible and negative experience and turn it, perhaps, into something a bit more positive. Because, yeah, without a doubt, 2020 just sucked. But I mean, there's gotta be something good that came out of 2020 for the MCU community, right? However, while I may talk about how 2020 may be a good year for the MCU, I do want to make something very clear. Even though I've had my own negative thoughts about the Black Panther movie become public, I'm not so heartless to say that anything positive came out of the death of Chadwick Boseman. Honestly, from what an inspiring personality he was during his short time on this planet, I will say that his passing was by far one of the worst things to happen, not only in 2020, but of the last decade, as far as famous deaths are concerned. And while I could go on and try and milk the sadness for as much as I can, just like so many other media outlets would try to do, I still want to keep this video somewhat positive. Or at least as positive as I possibly can be. So we're going to turn our attention away from that undeniably very sad scene and turn it towards the overall state of the MCU. Now, about a year ago, during my take on the Black Widow trailer after it recently released, I kind of mentioned this idea of Marvel burnout. After the terrifically put together and emotionally impacting conclusion to a decade plus of movies in Avengers Endgame, the idea of seeing yet another MCU movie seemed to be just a little too much for me. To the point where even watching Spider-Man Far From Home in the theaters felt like just one step too far for me. After seeing Endgame, I guess my brain sort of just flipped a switch that made me ready to take a break from the MCU. But hey, to their credit, they successfully pulled me into what was a fun ride in Spider-Man Far From Home. Yet, even after that fun ride in Far From Home, I guess my real need and desire for a new MCU movie just diminished. And really, I think it was like that for a lot of Marvel fans. Sure, maybe a lot of diehard MCU fans that are watching this video right now were just itching for more Marvel content, but really, I think a lot of people had gotten kind of into the idea of them pulling away for a bit after Endgame. It was this massive finale to a decade of storytelling, and, well, I guess people were just ready to take a break afterwards. But then, like I mentioned earlier, the Black Widow trailer came out, and I, at least, just felt exhausted. While I agree Black Widow not having a movie at all really feels off, I just don't know if I really wanted it at that time. First off, the Black Widow movie feels like it should have happened while Black Widow was still, you know, alive. But it also came during a time when I was still in this stage of exhale following the Infinity Saga. After a decade of storytelling, like I said, I guess I was just ready to take a break, take a breath following all of that action. So, to go back to the whole 2020 thing, I think that the whole world shutdown thing kinda unintentionally gave us that well-needed break from the MCU. Remember, oversaturation of any product is a very bad thing, and I really think the MCU, after Endgame, was starting to reach that point of oversaturation. And as fans, this well-needed break was actually probably a good thing in hindsight. But perhaps this year wasn't only good for the fans of the MCU, but also the creators as well. For how much I talk about my own fan burnout of the MCU, I can only imagine that the creators of this cinematic universe might have also been feeling something similar. When devoting so much of not only your life but public perception to this successful franchise, I can only assume that it can be emotionally taxing after a while. Like, sure, I bet they love it, but like I said, oversaturation of a product is a bad thing. Leaving your house every single day only to be met with fans saying something like, "Hey, you're Captain America!" And like, yeah, I can only assume it's a little draining to hear fans do whatever the hell that was all the time. But obviously, that's just something you're gonna get with every popular movie or TV show. If the show is popular, chances are you're going to get fans hounding you. And with a year of social distancing, I only hope these performers got a chance to finally unwind. And this time to unwind hopefully helped ease the tension of everybody making these movies, not just the performers. You have to think that everyone involved, including the writers of these movies, didn't stop trying to perfect their projects that they may have lined up. No, if I were one of the writers, I would still be looking to perfect my script during this time. It could be a year of reflection, reevaluation, and improvement, while also being a year for your creativity to wander. And you have to think that the writers of these movies were on the phone all the time, pitching their new ideas and improvements. Hell, this is probably a reason why they started announcing more and more projects in the last few weeks of 2020. So, in the end, while the world was seemingly shut down for all of 2020, perhaps this shutdown could have been a good thing. I mean, I know I'm relating 2020 to the MCU specifically, but I can only assume that for many, this year was also kind of a break for them. Clearly, this has been a rough year for humanity. But from a consumer and movie lover's perspective, perhaps this year was also a year to reflect on the more important things in life. From family to friends, and of course, to the art of cinema. Maybe, in the end, 2020, through its trials and tribulations, can help us all to be more thoughtful, more loving, and more appreciative of what we have. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I know that 2020 has been an absolute shit show of a year, but hopefully there were some positives to come out of it. But what about you? Do you agree with me that this break from the MCU was inevitably a good thing? Let me know in the comments below, but until next time, have a good day. Bye-bye.